What do you think needs to change immediately? What solutions? Everybody talks about all the problems. What do you think we could do to fix it?
I don't know if there's any fixing the NCAA. I don't think it is. I think it's what's been going on for many years.
The National Athletic Association is a non-profit organization which regulates athletes of 1,281 institutions and conferences. There are over 500,000 Division I student athletes in the NCAA. In 2017, the NCAA generated over $1.06 billion in revenue, which they give back to the schools. Most of this revenue is generated during the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Playoff Tournament and the Division I NCAA Football Playoffs. The men's basketball tournament has been the most watched televised event and has been for the past 24 years, according to NCAA.com. What is not publicly said is how much money that the players generate. According to NCAA rules, it is illegal to pay an athlete for their play, as the NCAA holds rights to them as amateur students, not professionals. But as we have just learned, many of these players are being paid by outside boosters and organizations. We will dive into these allegations and debunk the greatest con in sports, the NCAA, now.
I don't know how you can fix it. I don't see how you can fix it. Obviously, I've never been a part of it, so I don't know all the ins and outs about it. I don't know all the rules and regulations about it. But I do know what five-star athletes bring to a campus, both in basketball and football. I know how much these college coaches get paid. I know how much these colleges are gaining off these kids. And I've always heard the narrative they get a free education. But you guys are not bringing me on campus to get an education. You guys are bringing me on it to help you get to a Final Four or to a national championship.
How do you feel about the recent news of athletes coming out and telling media about cash considerations offered by
in the DeAndre Ayton case, Division I players obviously create a lot of revenue for their schools. I think it's only right for the players to get some sort of cash or something, reimbursement for their efforts for the school. So, I mean, in DeAndre Ayton's case, I know it's not right, but sooner or later, NCAA is going to start paying their athletes.
DeAndre Ayton, former Arizona Wildcat, now NBA draft prospect, was the first case reported of payment in the NCAA. FBI wiretaps intercepted phone conversation between Arizona coach Sean Miller and Christian Dawkins, a key figure in the FBI's investigation into college basketball corruption. Miller and Dawkins discussed paying $100,000 to ensure star freshman Ayton would sign with the Wildcats. Coach Sean Miller did not coach the Wildcats the following game, but Ayton remained eligible.
Kevin, the FBI wiretaps, as you mentioned, intercepted 3,000 hours of Christian Dawkins' phone calls. Among those calls were at least a couple of phone calls between he and Sean Miller in which they discussed paying DeAndre Ayton $100,000 to ensure he signed with the Wildcats back in the spring of 2017. I'm told that when Dawkins asked Miller if he should deal with one of his assistant coaches to finalize the deal, Miller told him, no, deal with me when it comes to money.
I'm not familiar with all of the details, but I'm familiar with his case and just the controversy surrounding this whole topic of paying athletes.
Yes. So how do you feel about that recent news coming out as a coach, and how about the athletes not telling the media about the cash considerations offered by?
I am very mixed on all of this, because coming from a family where my father grew up poor and he ended up getting academic scholarships, he very much cherishes the idea of getting a degree and what a degree is worth. And I understand that some of these athletes are getting degrees basically for free. But at the same time, a lot of these athletes are coming from situations where they don't have enough money to even meet their needs. Mm-hmm. So if somebody offered me money when I was in college, I don't know what I would have said. I would have been like, if you don't tell anybody, I could definitely use this money right now. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough call.
Mark, this is an FBI investigation. From a legal perspective, what's at stake for Sean Miller?
I can't speculate what kind of criminal charges he might face. Emmanuel Book Richardson, one of his assistant coaches, has already been charged with 6 felony counts by the U.S. Department of Justice, including wire fraud and mail fraud, and some other charges in regards to accepting $20,000 in bribes to influence some Arizona players to sign with certain financial planners and sports agents. Sean Miller, obviously $100,000. There's some questions that are probably going to be asked by the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Other athletes have come out and reported that they have received compensation for their play. Dallas Mavericks point guard and former NC State point guard Dennis Smith Jr. was also in the report made by the FBI, as he was paid by NC State boosters so that he would not decommit from the school, according to NC State Diehard's blog site.
Do you believe that these athletes that are getting paid should be punished in any way, like considering they're one and done, like?
No, I don't think the athletes should be punished. I think the people that are paying them should be punished because they're the ones in the position of power. And again, I don't mean to keep bringing up the sexual harassment cases, but the victims are not being punished, right? And so these athletes are the victims. Okay, there's not too much difference between sex and money. Okay, I don't know what I want to put it, but the point is that so those are things that people are benefiting from, and I think the athletes are getting paid. They need the money. They should not be victimized. Now, on the flip side, if they go out and they say pay me, and they blackmail somebody, I don't know the details. I could see how that if they're doing it illegally knowing it. But if somebody approaches them and tries to pay them, I don't see if they're victims, they shouldn't be punished.
Many different platforms of media are discussing the issue of the NCAA scandal. The Netflix original film, Amateur, discusses how a high school basketball player is persuaded by a private school coach to play basketball for his travel team and to make it to the NBA. Little does he know that there are consequences for his actions. The following clips explain the causes and effects of playing amateur players while affecting their schooling.
Your son's the player I believe he is. He's going to be making millions of dollars while he's still a teenager. Now, I'm sorry, but to me, that's more valuable than a piece of paper.
That's not right.
What's not right is he's the reason this all exists and he can't be paid $1. The TV rights go for billions on the back of the basketball and football players. The money he brings in is what allows for the trust fund babies to play lacrosse, but he can't see a dime of it? What the hell do you think you're doing meeting with him, Vince?
The number one team in the entire country comes calling, I'm gonna listen to what they gotta say.
Yeah, well, whatever that dirtbag told you is bullshit, trust me. He won't get any playing time and you don't want him there.
This is my son. I ain't even gotta listen to you no more.
Actually, you do have to listen to me, Vince. Do you realize how involved you are?
The fuck are you talking about?
Did you forget that we paid you to bring your son here? Scholarship wasn't enough? You basically sold him.
You the motherfucker that paid me.
No, Byron paid you. That money left his bank account and ended up in yours. So all your travel expenses, the receipts for Tehran's phone, and his jewelry, you know what, Vince? It's all improper benefits, all illegal. So you try to move your son from my program, I'll make sure Byron tells him everything.
Think I give a about that?
You should, Vince. Once it's out he's been paid to play, he's no longer an amateur.
Now, up to 36 Division I programs could be facing punishment for the NCAA violations as a result of the probe. According to ESPN's Mark Stahlberg, a second report went even further. The breadth of potential NCAA rules violations uncovered is wide enough to fundamentally and indubitably affect the sport of college basketball, wrote Yahoo's Pete Thamel.
So, in the point of view of the NCAA, do you believe that they knew about all of this going on, or do you think that they were oblivious until the investigation happened?
I think they knew, and I don't want to bring in all the other scandals that are happening in our society today, but if you just look at any of them, especially with the sexual harassment stuff that's been happening, I think people knew, and I just think it was an accepted. I'm not saying it was right, but it was sort of accepted that you just looked the other way. And that's where all of the wrong came in. People knew that things were happening that were illegal, and they just chose to ignore it. So my answer is I bet people knew.
The NCAA has avoided the topic of paying athletes for years, ever since the issue first became relevant. Supposedly, they cycle the revenue back into the schools, and it contributes towards the athletics of the schools and the NCAA. But most of these athletes will never see the money. We wonder why these athletes keep quiet, but then we ask, is this a part of the plan? Does the NCAA know? Is this on purpose? We may never know, but one thing is for certain. There will be changes. We don't know when, but there will be changes.